What's good, everybody? Welcome into our latest interview episode here at BTT Studios. And as you guys know, we tell you every single day, we're trying to grow in every way and also make you a smarter sports fan and a more informed sports fan. So today, I'm very, very excited because our interviewee is one of the leading figures in the NIL movement. She is the founder of AthleteCon, and she is doing all of the good work behind the scenes. And we're very excited to welcome Sam Green in for the very first time. Hello, my dear. How are you?
What's up, Coach? I'm good. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, it's awesome. And we've been talking about this for some time. And so when we got connected, I said, I've got to sit Sam down because on our show, Coach and Company, we talk about NIL all the time, but everybody's so uninformed. So I want to start with this. What are you doing right now with it?
Oh man, I'm grinding. I'm really just helping student athletes. In all honesty, when you think about NIL and you think about the industry that it is, there's two types. There's pay to play, and then there's real NIL. And I'm a big advocate for real NIL, which I would consider brand building. These athletes really finally being able to monetize off their name, image, and likeness. So you name it, I am doing it within the industry, from traveling school to school with my NIL content creation workshops, partnering with brands like JBL and Marriott, to starting my own convention like a psychopath with no staff members and fundraising the whole dang thing, and to actually launching my own tech platform. So just really all things NIL and athlete brand building.
Man, I tell you what, so much respect because we've done the same thing here at Coach and Company, and it's not easy when you don't have a bunch of hands to help you. But everything you just described, I saw an interview with Kirk Herbstreit a few weeks ago, and he talked about how a lot of people have been misinformed with what NIL is. Players are expecting a salary just to show up and play, and you just use the term real NIL, where you get paid because you're marketable. What's the biggest difference and the biggest misconception to the fans at home?
Real NIL is the sustainable version of NIL. When we talk through revenue sharing or any type of model implemented at the NCAA and the internal level, it's always going to be messy. There's always going to be stipulations and the portal and just salary caps. It's messy, and to be honest, there's no way to predict fully where it's going. And I think it's always going to be constantly in flux. But the one thing that's never going to change, in my opinion, is real NIL, because athletes are always going to have a desire to build their own brand and to monetize themselves. And the main reason why is because there's a lot of money left on the table still. Sure, you can get paid by a salary, but look at all these athletes. Libby Dunn, Angel Reese, Flaugier, they're making more money off the field than they are getting paid to play.
Let's talk about Libby Dunn for a second because she's a great kind of topic for people when you look at capitalizing off of her brand. I'm fascinated by how she goes about it. When you partner with somebody like her, how do you even start the conversation, and where does the journey go from the beginning?
Yeah, so the Duns are an official partner with the Libby's foundation of my convention, AthleteCon. And to be honest, what's so impressive about Libby and her entire family and her sister Jules especially is their actual desire to educate other athletes on how to build a brand, just like Libby has herself. And so I think that's how we really got connected. We both just really have that desire to help student athletes. And so when the Duns were interested in AthleteCon, it was a seamless match to partner up, because at the end of the day, we both just kind of have that goal to be able to amplify other athletes and give them a platform and really a roadmap on how to succeed at this thing.
It really feels like you're ahead of the game. And I think that's why I enjoy these conversations so much, because as we looked at the media side of things and we started talking to different networks, and they said, hey, we're moving away from the studio show. We want to go to the remote show. And so we had to learn, me and my right hand, as I like to call him, as we go. When you decided to take this route and say, this is what I'm going to make my career, what has been the biggest challenge for you?
Oh, that is a good question. To be honest, it's been challenging because I'm navigating my own path, and I always have, to be honest. I started as an editor at ESPN, took everything that I did there in an 8-hour shift on expensive software and started learning how to do it from my phone to teach professional athletes, a lot of female Olympic and a lot of minor league baseball guys, how to really subsidize their income through brand deals. And this was a long time ago. Social media was just kind of coming around to video content. They didn't know how to edit videos, and they shouldn't. They grew up as athletes, but
Yeah.
I knew the money that was on the table, that if they woke up and really learned the value of content creation, that they could, really make a name for themselves that would outlive their name on the roster. And so that worked. And then when NIL passed, I just immediately made the jump over. It's cringy. I say that I feel like the industry was like born for me, because I felt like all these skills that I had accumulated over like the last decade kind of popped up into a freaking billion-dollar industry overnight. And it's been a grind because there is no roadmap. Like, there is no set role. Like, I have people call me and say, I want to do what you do. How do you do it? And I'm like, you don't sleep. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Yeah.
you just keep helping athletes. 90% of my days, I help athletes for free. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You just go out. And so I'd say the challenge is really that. I'd say the good part of that is I've really, truly just gone to fill in a gap. If I see a gap and a need, I just go in, roll up my sleeves, and kind of fill it. So the challenging part is the lack of a blueprint.
See, I'm so glad you just said that because I feel like we're kindred spirits. Because the one thing when I speak to a school or speak to students that are coming out in the media space, I tell them all the time, if you focus on the money, and it's not even from a salary standpoint, but everything has changed in the last 25 years into remote, into podcasting, into everything that kind of feeds into what you are doing. But if you focus on the money, you're never going to get there, because then you're saying, well, I made 2 cents an hour. But it truly is, the minute you get up in the morning till the minute you go to bed, you've got to be obsessed with this,
Mm.
correct?
It's a sacrifice. It really, truly is. I can't tell you how many friends are like, do you leave the house? And I'm like, no. Like, it's just kind of a part of it. But when you really love it, and when your goal is bigger than yourself, and your goal is really to help other people, and you see it work, and it actually helps them, and they actually call you and can't believe that it worked, and you're helping other people achieve their dreams, that's my dream. So you got to be a little bit crazy in the head, I think.
I love it though. Because that's literally at our core here at Coaching Company. Is we start from a we want to help standpoint. We want to help you have a good day, have a fun day, learn a little bit, laugh a lot. But Nick Saban was not laughing when he quit Alabama. And the biggest reason, because he said he would walk into a living room and you got an offensive tackle who nobody knows, who nobody's ever going to know, saying, listen, I don't care about your program. What's the check that you're going to
Yeah.
write me? So when athletes like a right tackle who are not marketable, who are not Libby Dunn, what is the biggest thing that these athletes have got to get past? Because at some point, there is going to be regulations, there is going to be a salary cap, and not everybody's going to get paid.
Hmm. I would say you don't have to be marketable to be marketable now. That's kind of the beauty in this entire thing. And I think people get like where the NIL money is like wrong, because it doesn't have to just be social media advertisements. Yes, that's 4 out of 5 NIL deals is based around you getting paid to kind of make content for these brands, but you are a business. Like, your brand is a business. So you don't have to like social media or content to make money off of it. That guy might be able to launch camps, nonprofit camps or just sports camps in his area. There's a ton of like volunteering opportunities that you get paid to actually just show up and go read to kids. So, there's an entrepreneurial side to NIL that I really love personally helping athletes do. And I think Libby is a perfect example of that with her nonprofit that she's doing, right? So I'd say focusing on building yourself as a business if you don't feel like, you're the shining star from a marketing standpoint.
So let me ask you this: you have the slow build that most athletes have to go through, but a guy like Amir Khan, who shows up in March Madness, he's a manager, and all of a sudden they have the hook, and the hook is the big boom box over the shoulder, and all of a sudden he's got 3, 4 deals. Buffalo Wild Wings, the
Yep.
socks that were selling out. What did he do that was so right in the NIL space, not being an athlete?
That was just organic, man. You can't make that stuff up. You feel his vibe. He's genuinely, it's the culture side of athletics. That's kind of beautiful and kind of turns into wonderful stories like this. Shout out to Bumpbox too. They came to my convention last year, and to be honest, they just bring the party everywhere
Really?
they go. It's always over people's shoulders. So I would say that's a perfect example of somebody that's in the industry for the right reasons, and he's there to actually help these athletes, and he's a service mindset, and that culture really amplifies with the team. Athletes can sniff out, they're so used to being taken advantage of. There's always an ask. 99% of people within the industry, whether it's NIL, athletics in general, are just sitting there, me, with a handout, just asking for something from these athletes. And so when you get a guy like him who's genuinely there to pump them up and to just be a fan and to be a support system, it picks up steam. You feel it. You feel that culture. So I feel like he just had the nerve to do it. I mean, that was bold. Like, who does that, you know? So I think at the end of the day, good people with good intentions and good energy are going to rise to the top eventually, because the industry is just going to get more and more saturated with people that are trying to, make a buck off the athlete.
Well, I can only imagine there's a lot of sharks out there, or snakes, I guess, as we should call them out there. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the schools run NIL, that the schools are paying the athletes when it's kind of a collective. Can you explain to the novice person sitting at home that doesn't know anything about NIL connected to colleges how it truly works?
It's messy right now. We're in limbo. So we don't even know how it's working right now. Traditionally, when NIL first came out, what you were really seeing was the NIL collectives that not a lot of people know about were the ones that were really funding these, athletes to pay to play. It was illegal for them to be considered employees. You weren't allowed to pay them. You had to pay them in exchange for a service. That's where real NIL came about. But when the industry, has been around, NIL collectives are considered nonprofits or third party entities that aren't technically associated or officially affiliated underneath an athletic department umbrella. So this was an easy way for donors, or alumni to donate to a college collective to then pay the college athlete. And that's where it kind of started getting fishy. Were they paying athletes to pay, or was there a true exchange there? Now,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sitting in the courts of everything that's going on right now. So I can't speak too much to what this model is truly about to develop and look like. But that's what's been going on for years and years and years. But now a lot of these college collectives are actually coming underneath the umbrella because the rules are changing and schools are about to be, allowed to pay these athletes. They're kind of taking on a lot of these collectives as third party arms and almost as a marketing party, like a third party marketing company that's going to help them still meet with donors, meet with the local businesses. So the model's changing daily. I probably should have I should have probably checked X like right before this and refreshed just in case, because I feel like every 2 seconds something's
Wow.
shifting.
Yeah, it's funny because colleges now are morphing into kind of being run, especially the football programs, the big money, having general managers, which is what you have in the NFL. You never had that before. You had athletic directors. Now you've got guys they're hiring. Bill Belichick just did it, where you've got a guy that his entire job is to make sure the business of the program is being run correctly. I'll bring up Tennessee to you because Tennessee recently passed a thing where I didn't see any negative from their season ticket holders, where they're adding 10% to every ticket, and
Mhm.
that 10% goes directly into the NIL fund. Does that then bring up a fairness aspect of not everybody, not every school is going to be able to do that because their season ticket holders simply won't want to pay the extra 10%? Is that kind of in that gray fishy area as well?
Well, exactly. That's just one example of where we can regulate this thing a million times and there's just still going to be gray, like, because it's so new and it's, these rules weren't here for so long, and college athletics has been going on for how many years, without all of these new rules and these changes, that no matter what, it's just going to constantly evolve and change, and that's the perfect example of it.
We were talking to the founder of AthleteCon, Sam Green, here talking everything NIL at Coach and Company. Let's talk about your convention because this is 2.0. So you made it through year one, and now you're going to year two. You've got some really cool partnerships in place. What's been the biggest difference going from just getting it off the ground to now legit year number two?
I'm honestly honored with how much it picked up steam. To be honest, I feel like I wish I would have bet on myself and bought a bigger convention ballroom because I had to cap this thing out. I didn't even post about general
Wow.
admission tickets, and I'm sold out of tickets. I had athletes calling me at midnight when I was closing out the roster, booking their own flights, paying for it, paying me money for food. And these are athletes. Like, my biggest model is I don't charge the athletes, and I'm always the biggest advocate of they don't even have money to spend, and just to reserve their spot. I have a wait list of 150 D1 collegiate athletes on my wait list that I couldn't even get to this year. So the response has just been incredible. I'm so excited for this year, and it's such a good mix of top athlete content creators that have 700,000 followers all the way down to athletes that, are really hungry and just trying to get started. And, the brands that are involved, it's just very exciting. So I'm pumped.
So tell me how it works. Is it a convention that fans come to? Is this strictly for athletes? Walk me through AthleteCon.
Yeah, so I never would have thought that I was going to start a convention. If you would have asked me, is this in your business plan or your 5-year model? I would have said no. But what happened is I started going from university to university. I would partner with brands like JBL and Marriott and teach athletes how to actually create content and go live with advertisements in person. And so I saw what hands-on curriculum could really do for these athletes. They really wanted it. And there was a misconception out there that athletes don't do anything but for $1 million. And I saw that. I went to Texas, ran a workshop with JBL, opened it up to the athletes. They knew they had to post content for free in exchange for just product. And I had 12 Texas football players show up to the JBL workshop and posting content in exchange for a tiny little speaker. So it bothered me that this was just kind of the conception that was out there. And I
Mm-hmm.
had been to every event, I'd spoken on all the panels, and I'd seen everything within the industry, and everything was about what brand or sponsor paid the most money to shove their agenda down the athletes' throats. And the athletes would call me and be like, I got a cute picture, but I didn't learn anything. And it bothered me. So,
Mm-hmm.
like a psychopath, I fundraised the whole thing last year with no employees and flew in 80 D1 athletes and all the social media apps. It was the very first convention to facilitate NIL deals in person. And it was the very first convention to celebrate athletes as content creators. Picked up enough steam again that now, we're here at 2.0. So it is open. There's general admission tickets open. The people that attend are brands, businesses, people trying to get within the industry, and then the athletes and all the social media platforms and really the educators.
So let me ask you this, because I'm just trying to. I love to talk this through, and I want to make sure our audience understands everything that you're doing because you're going to grow by the year. When because I'm used to wrestling conventions, and wrestling
Okay.
conventions you have booths, and then you have people attend, and you're talking. Is this a scenario where, let's use Marriott for example, and you give them a booth, and then all these athletes come through, and they're getting to meet them face to face and maybe even sign NIL deals on the spot? Or do I have that completely
You
messed
have
up?
it right. So the breakdown is there's hands-on content creation workshops. So TikTok and Snapchat and Meta and I get up there and actually teach these athletes hands-on tools on how to monetize their brand. And then there's booths and vendors open. They get to network and meet them all weekend. Last year, I had athletes land full-time jobs after meeting brands for the first time in the room. It's been incredible.
Wow.
The key that separates us, and it was really the first convention to ever do it, is the content creation competition. So all the brands in the room have the opportunity to give away an NIL deal, and they give all their terms and conditions up front, and athletes get to opt in, and they run around the hotel. I give designated time for them to go create content and publish it live at the event for all these brands. And then the Pink Turf Suits and Sneakers Awards night, they get all dressed up in their dresses and suits, but of course they're sneakers. They walk the pink turf, get all their content, and then brands get up and actually award live in person NIL deals for their favorite athlete advertisements.
Do you understand how big this is going to be? Do you realize that?
Thank you. I hope so. That's why we don't sleep, because we just got to keep building
This is
it.
incredible. It's I feel like what you have is one of those things. It's not going to be a slow build. Once people start really listening and doing interviews like this, every company should be knocking down your door, because this is a what I call a safe place with somebody like yourself who's doing good work,
Totally.
that doesn't want to take advantage of these athletes, that you can come into one big room. Like you said, you needed a bigger room, and
Yeah,
then it's not going to be the Wild West where you're meeting at, Waterburger on I-90 somewhere, and
right.
you're trying to do it. And so to me, whether it's Marriott or JBL, this would be an incredible way to have all the athletes in one place. Have you started to get that feeling a little bit?
100%. And the athletes are just the right athletes in the room. It's the ones that are going to hustle. It's the ones that are going to work hard, the ones that you want to hire at the end of the day. They're content creators. It's not just about your quarterback in the room. We have those too, but they're the ones that
Mhm.
actually want to work for it and want to meet the brands. And it's definitely catching on. To be honest, I already have brands, bigger brands, calling me, already planning for the 3.0 iteration. And I do run a spinoff called AthleteCon Queens Retreat, a private branding weekend for female athletes here in North Carolina too. So we're already in the works for what's next, but very excited for this year.
Let's talk about that one for a second, because recently, over the weekend, we do this thing called Weekend Rewind on our daily show, live on Stadium, available in over 110 million homes. Um,
Biggie.
and the the biggest topic over the weekend was not Scotty Scheffler winning the PGA Championship. It wasn't the Knicks being the Celtics. It was Caitlin Clark and
Yep.
Angel Reese and the WNBA. And when you have two women who probably were at the front facing of the NIL on the female side getting in the news, however it is, does that help NIL for the women, no matter the attention, or does that kind of controversy hurt them?
It absolutely helps them because you got to understand right now they're still not making what the guys are making, and
Hmm.
so this allows a lot of eyes for them, and that's where real NIL even makes it to the pro level, is exactly for reasons like that.
Okay.
Caitlin Clark makes way more money from her brand endorsements off the field and for the brand that she has built than she does for playing, and that's just how it is. And so the more eyes and the more attention that we can bring to women in sports, in the female games, is just going to, put more money in their pocket, which they deserve.
It's incredible that you're so that one is strictly all female, the
It
spinoff you said.
is.
So
It
do you
is.
run it the same exact way as you do AthleteCon?
A little bit more private, way more exclusive, and a lot more one-on-one time. So way smaller. I cap it to 20 to 30 girls to really keep it a true resourceful weekend. But yes, there's brand deals last year. Dove was a major sponsor of it. So we had a vineyard tour, we had a charcuterie board lesson, we had candle making classes, all while really learning and getting a custom content strategy on what do you want to turn this into. Do you want to be an entrepreneur or a full-time motivational speaker? I sit down with them and really map out that strategy on how to help them get there. And yes, there's always going to be NIL deals up for grabs. I always have trip giveaways or cash NIL deals, or winning a sponsorship from Dove. So definitely the same premise, but a little bit more intimate.
So for on the female side, because on the male side you have these mega TV deals and the SEC player can be seen and all that. What are the challenges that female athletes have that may not be on TV as much, or maybe their following is a little bit slower to build?
I think the hardest part is actually convincing the athletes that are non-revenue generating sports, that
Hmm.
are, at a smaller D3 school, like your D3 discus throwers, can, like, sitting down and giving them the confidence that they can do it too. And to be honest, when I sit down and really work with them and they put in the work, sometimes those are the ones that end up genuinely making the most money, because
Hmm.
it's all about work ethic and just kind of having the confidence to put yourself out there and having the nerve to pitch yourself. You don't, closed mouths don't get fed. If you're not going to go pitch yourself, you're not going to make anything. But 10 times out of 10, these brands want to work with you for who you are, not just because of your name or your spot on the roster or what school you go to. If you're a good human and you're putting out great content and you're marketable, they're going to sign you.
It's interesting because being in this space, and as I've morphed away from what I call being a hired gun during my time at ESPN or CBS or whatever it is, it's I'm learning that just because you have a huge following does not necessarily translate into you're going to get a ton of views or you're going to get a ton of attention because your content may not be that good. Steve Alford is a coach, college basketball, legendary coach, and he went off after his team lost in March Madness about how he's going to have to replace all 10 players because they're all going to go somewhere else because they got an offer, like a contract in the NBA. He goes, half these kids aren't even good enough to play for me. They're like coming off the bench and they're just leaving. So all these coaches are having to redo their
Mhm.
entire rosters every single year. When are we going to get to a point where the transfer portal and just writing these kids checks are going to be circumvented by we're really going to get to the players who make the money back for these companies?
That's the hardest part. I would not want to be a coach in the collegiate space right now. I'm not going to lie. And that's why I'm truly here to try and help develop the real NIL, because that part is the headache. That is what's, controversial, and why people have such a, negative view on NIL is because of
Mhm.
that reason alone. And I've said it probably a million times on this show. It's just constantly going to change. It's going to forever be evolving, and a new rule, this one passes, this one gets taken away. It's just, that part is the messy part. The portal is the hardest part, and I don't blame these coaches for being frustrated by it. And so what I really try and teach athletic departments and coaches themselves is to actually dive into the real NIL and help their athletes and give them the resources, the tools, and the education to monetize off their NIL in the true fashion, because that is going to be what separates programs at the end of the day.
Mhm.
We all have caps and we can all only spend the same amount on our roster no matter what. Then how are you going to, convince someone to come here when it's cold and snowy, and they rather go, make the same
Yeah.
amount of money somewhere else? And it's going to be because they feel resourced and they feel educated. And the schools that I have worked with consistently over the past 3 years and really sit down with the athletes and map it out don't even enter the portal. They don't even care if they're offered $10,000 more at another school, because they're making more from their own NIL through advertisements and through building their brand than that $10,000. And they don't want to lose those resources because the schools are handing them the blueprint to succeed. And that's going to outlive their playing career. And that's what's going to really last. LSU is the perfect example of that. They really, I mean, Libby and Flage, we talked about them, and Angel, but then they built the resources there to have it. They have studios there. They just launched this thing called LSU The Brand. I mean, they really do a good job of giving those athletes the resources, and people don't want to leave because of it. And people transfer to LSU because of it, not just because of the money.
That is so fascinating that they've invested in NIL in ways that we never talk about in the media. Like, that's the first time I'm hearing about that, which means that other schools probably are starting to think this way, because if you invest 500,000, whatever the number is, into your NIL, and then I would assume that there's not very many people like you, but I would assume that they're now starting to look to bring in a Sam Green to run our program at LSU specifically so we can educate them here and not have to wait for AthleteCon. You're going to become kind of the queen of this whole thing, and then you're going to have to start training people to work for these big schools. Have you thought about that?
That's the goal. You got it.
Okay. And what do you think
That's the
that
code.
looks like?
It's gonna take time. It's still gonna take some time, but it's picked up a lot of steam, to be honest. It's, all these schools are starting to wake up to it working, to really developing these athletes. I am not the one that shoves my agenda down the admin's throats and says, look at what I'm doing. And I
Mhm.
don't throw a super, super high price point on this, because my goal is to truly get in there and roll up my sleeves and build long-term relationships. I want to help develop this curriculum at the NCAA level and be the official brand coach and implement my curriculum in every university. And so now I'm starting to see a lot of schools call me for freshman development programs when they first come in. It's the first day of school. I come in and I run my workshops and some of my curriculum. I'm starting to see, that with a lot of the transfers, as soon as a transfer comes in, they're kind of have to come directly through me. I'm launching a e-course certification so that it can also be a self-paced, a video kind of drive that these athletes can go back and really learn step by step. I'm talking even including video editing within a module. Shout out to my ESPN background. But
Wow.
from that, and then my app as well, I literally had to start a technology platform, again, not in my 5-year business plan, but completely out of demand, called Athlete Space, where it's a community that athletes can come in, and there's a chat, a locker room chat, where they get to ask each other questions, learn from each other. I have e-courses loaded up in there. I have job boards where brands can actually, and companies can come and list job listings and internships for athletes to be able to access. I have an NIL marketplace integrated in there where there are going to be NIL deals that brands and athletes are going to facilitate through Athlete Space. So I would say it's the wild, wild west for me too.
I got to tell you, we're working on. I work with I have several jobs, but one of them is PFL, and we're developing an app. And I know that it's not inexpensive. And so, are these small price points, or how do you go about when you're talking about your app or about these discords or whatever it is that you're doing? Is it how do you monetize that?
It's been through demand. I've had people catch on to what I'm doing and want to get involved. And so I've had people be like, I'm a tech guy. Can I please build and scale this tech for you? So I've been
Wow.
blessed with really leading with truly the mindset again of resourcing, and it's paid me back in full because of it. So a lot of people really feel the community, the culture that I'm building with these athletes out of genuine intentions, and are starting to really build around me.
Isn't that cool? Because that's exactly how it's worked here. My producer, who is, I literally say it all the time, I can't do it without him. And we just kind of stumbled on each other, and that was less than a year ago. And now we've got all this going on, and it's amazing when you have like-minded people that aren't focused on the end game, but focused on how do we get to the end game. And so I would imagine that I love speaking and I love getting paid to speak
Mhm.
because it's fun and you get to be in front of the people. And you also, and I've had to tell myself, this is my job now. I'm not a sports center anchor anymore. There's a lot more to me. Do you see yourself now getting called from colleges and saying, we want to pay you to come in front of our group of students at our individual school because we can't wait for AthleteCon every single year?
That's how I got started, to be honest.
Oh,
So, yeah, schools fly me in, and I ended up rolling out long-term uh, contracts with them where I come in 4 times a year, 2 times a day, because, there's so many athletes that are seeing value in it that, we had to kind of build out longer term relationships, which I love, but that's really one of my favorite pieces of what I do.
let me ask you this, because a lot of what you're talking about, I'm sure there will be athletes who watch this and like, oh my gosh, it seems like I'll never get it. It's so confusing to me. I'm not used to it. I just want to play. Does an athlete need a social media manager or somebody to help them to get there faster?
There's a lot of tips and tricks that I teach to speed things up, even like, batching your content. If you got an hour, of an off day, plan it out and go ahead and just hit record and schedule everything out. There's a lot of scheduling tools, even through Instagram directly now. So if you're just getting started, I still do all my own content. I'm still my own editor and still my own publisher, because,
Wow.
once you get it down to a science, it's just a part of your routine and you're just kind of used to it. But it's helpful, and if you have the money to be able to do that, absolutely, but I take pride in, I'm OCD, and I like my content edited my way, and I want it
Yeah.
scheduled. I want that I kind of, lose that. And some athletes are that way too. They're athletes, they are picky and particular, and they want their content done that way. But I would say, if you're not an OCD freak and you can kind of let go of control, and you have the budget as an athlete to be able to do so, it's a great investment into yourself, because gonna it's evergreen. That's an investment that is forever going to pay yourself back, because you are putting yourself out there. You are leaving your digital imprint on the world, and you're building your own brand that, again, is going to outlive that playing career. That it is a good, way to think for athletes.
What do you teach these athletes about the brand longevity, especially on the female side? Because on the female athlete, professionally, doesn't have as many opportunities here in the States as the male athlete does. So what is your advice to them to maintain this after they get through with college, and perhaps maybe, the WNBA or the smaller soccer leagues that are just starting up, but it's a big difference than the men?
A lot of athletes think that it's all about making content that goes viral, and most of the content that goes viral is about the logo on their chest, or the school and the trendy TikTok dance. That's still great. That's still going to help you grow, and you should still do that, and it's going to help you tap into your fan base. But what happens when that goes away? That cannot
Mhm.
be the only thing that you sustain your brand on. And so the number one thing that I teach is converting your followers into an actual community. And there's so many tips out there, like starting an Instagram broadcast channel, or really diving into your Instagram stories, or every time a fan comments on your video, don't ignore it, comment back. They will follow you for who you are. And so there's so many types of content that I preach that athletes should be putting out, where the audience falls in love with them for who they are, not just their sport. And then that translates into life after sports. And one of the easiest ways that you can do this is a day in the life video. Let's say you want to become a nurse when you're done. Start teasing that, start showing you in your scrubs and incorporating that, yes, while still tapping into the fan base by showing your uniform as well. But now people are really going to watch that journey and follow you no matter what chapter of life you're in.
I never thought about Instagram replies. You're teaching me right now, because I always think about X as the place to reply, because it's easier. On Instagram, you got to go in, you got to hit the reply. But that is kind of where Instagram is all about the life and the story and the videos, as opposed to, I think X is just a cesspool. But you're saying on Instagram, take the time to go in and reply to those people that replied to you, right?
100%. And if somebody shares your piece of content to their story, thank them. It's really about getting to know these fans. So many athletes are worried about getting the next fan or the next follower, but you're not taking care of the ones that you already have.
God, I in sports betting, I tell that to sports books all the time. They're so worried about what I call acquisitions. And that's kind of what you're talking about. You want to acquire a new follower instead of, hey, you got somebody here that's paying you, take care of them. They will repay you and repay you and
100%.
repay you. God, it's amazing how different businesses or ideas still come back to the same type of thing. Um, we never like to go longer than 35 or 40 minutes on these. So I know we're getting to that time. So I want to start, ask you a couple of questions as we close this out on where you would like not just your career, but I think what you're doing is unbelievably important. So I'm thrilled that we did this today. But where do you want to see this in the next 12 to 24 months?
I would love AthleteCon to become as big as a VidCon or a Comic-Con, where I'm really resourcing as many athletes as I possibly can, and in different locations as well. And I named it AthleteCon for a reason, because it's going to go beyond just NIL. I can help resource Olympic athletes, pro athletes. It's not just about name, image, and likeness in collegiate sports. I think that's what a lot of people get wrong about this industry. They think that it is just collegiate, and there's a focus there, but every
Mhm.
single athlete can benefit from branding themselves, content creation, and working with brands. So I would love to be able to get this convention to that level so I can resource as many athletes as possible. And then with my tech platform, Athlete Space, I want every single athlete in the world that wants to build their brand to be on there, to be able to build a mega community of athlete brand builders.
And if you were to look into the camera right now and have a message for the lowest athlete and followers and the biggest star like a Libby Dunn, what would be your message to them right now?
You can do it. It is all about work ethic and having the nerve to press post and to not care what your teammate thinks. There is a bad traditional culture a lot of times within a locker room where you feel like your teammate's going to make fun of you. And at the end of the day, I promise you, when you walk across that stage in 4 years, or with COVID years right now, sometimes it's like 7 years, you're going to regret it, because you're going to lose that name on the roster. You're going to lose that fan base. I've seen it. I danced in the NBA and I deleted my account and I lost that whole fan base, started over. It was so much harder. So there is an appetite for whatever you're interested in from a content perspective. People do care. There is an appetite out there of consumers. What you want to post is still important. Stop worrying about what people think or what you think, people want to see. Be yourself and just have the nerve to press post.
And grind and understand it's not going to
Uh,
happen overnight. Also, I think that's another big misconception. Oh, I'm going to make $1 million tomorrow. It really is day by day by day, isn't it?
just like sports are. It translates in life. Just like you took years as a kid going to those clinics and those camps to get to your level, content, brand building, or anything in life that you want to build, a business, it's all the same. It's never overnight. And you're right. And that part gets frustrating to athletes. They post
Yep.
one or two videos and look at you and wonder why it didn't work.
It used to frustrate me before I learned when I started this. Man, we should be. And then now, when I stopped
Oh,
focusing on that, man, we really started to grow. Last two things. Where is AthleteCon? What is the place that you're holding it at?
Charlotte, North Carolina at the AC Marriott Charlotte City Center. So it kicks off with a welcome party at the rooftop hotel bar called Nouvelle. So everything's at the AC Marriott.
All right, I'm gonna put this bug in your ear that 12 months from now at AthleteCon 3, I want to have the premier spot
There
to host Coach and Company
we go.
live on national television and also do a very special podcast with athletes live from your AthleteCon. Do you think we could make that happen?
There we go. We'll see you at 3.0.
Damn it, that's what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to what she's going on. Your social media is what?
At Sam B. Green on all platforms.
At Sam B. Green on all platforms. At Sam Bean Green, the founder of AthleteCon. I'm telling you, it's going to be blowing up. Going to be blowing up. Thank you for your time.
I
And thank you
appreciate
for your time. This
Thanks
is
for
why you come here. This is why you come here, for people like her.
having me. Thank
Subscribe,
you.
BTT Studios. Let's go. Sam B. Green. Thank you very much.